Howdy, folks. This is Dr. Richard Owen, and you are listening to the Doc Owen Show, our usual live broadcast on a Thursday night. Welcome back or welcome aboard. We are glad to have you. As you know, but I always mention, we are all over the social media. Best place to find us, best place to follow us. And pretty soon we're going to be implementing what we call the nuclear option. We are starting a blog. We're starting a central point from which to manage everything else. And we'll may get time to tell you a little bit about that later on, but mostly just know that it is underway. We are real excited about it. A little challenged by it, but real excited about it. We are everywhere as Doc Owen Show. All one word, DOCOWENSHOW. That's the Twitter handle. That's the Facebook page. That's Instagram. That's everything. That's where we are. That's what we do. And so, go out there, hook up with us. This is, if you're one of our followers, you just got a tweet that we're live. So this has given you enough time to tune into the show. Welcome aboard. And as usual, we will start out with a little piece of inspiration from Miss I'm a Surefire. Miss Surefire?
Howdy, folks. Tonight's quote comes from inspirationaldaily.com, and it's by a gentleman of the name Henry Van Dyke. Not the actor, that was Dick Van Dyke, but Henry Van Dyke. He was an American author, educator, and clergyman. And his quote is, "Some people are so afraid to die that they never begin to live."
Very good. I've heard that in similar, but that's nice to know. Henry Van Dyke.
Yes.
Okay, I will remember that. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
And in the house, we have, of course, Uncle Bocce. Uncle Bocce, say hello.
Hello, everyone out there.
All right, that's enough. We will get to Mr. Bocce in a minute. Uncle Bocce is if this is your first time with us, he's our show historian. So he is in charge of what we used to call the Wayback Machine. I've forgotten what show that was on, but somebody, I'll think of it in a minute. Just
Doctor Who?
No, had the Wayback Machine. That's what I call YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little shot of leadership quote here from our friends, as usual, Crowned Grace International. If you're not familiar with them, look them up. They do all sorts of good work, not the least of which is a daily quote that you can, just kind of put in the back of your head, some better than others. This one is from a fellow by the name of Les Brown. And I'm going to assume that that's the Band of Renown.
Yeah.
I didn't look it up, because when you say Les Brown, that means the Band of Renown. Your smile will give you a positive countenance that will make people feel comfortable around you.
I like that. That's a good one.
Okay,
yeah.
So smile and people will smile back at you is what I had heard at one point in time. I got one local event that I need to tell you about for two very distinct reasons. How about that? The local event is the local chapter of Act for America, and you certainly should be familiar with that. It's Brigitte Gabriel was the founder, and she's done a really good job of developing organizations throughout the United States to carry the message. Next Thursday night, that should give you a hint what the second part of this is. Next Thursday night, June the 23rd, there will be a gentleman in town by the name of Dr. Peter Pry, P-R-Y, and Dr. Pry is a WFA, world's foremost authority, on electromagnetic pulse threats to the electric grid. So you've heard of the EMP, that stands for electromagnetic pulse. He is going to tell the Act for America crowd all about that. In addition, he'll be telling the Doc Owen Show listeners all about that, because we are going to broadcast live from that event, which means that we will officially go on the air at 7 o'clock instead of 8. We'll update the Facebook page. We'll send all of this out, et cetera, et cetera. Tell your friends. We'll go on the air at 7 o'clock. It'll probably be over sometime around 8 to 8:15, depending on how long he talks. We will also have his slideshow available for you to watch as you listen to him on the radio. So we will send out to the Doc Owen Show insiders and post on our Facebook page and tweet, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get it out there on the web address where you will go to watch the slideshow. So it will be a virtual demonstration if you cannot make it to the, where is it? I guess I should tell you. It's at the Village Parkway Baptist Church. The address is 3002 Village Parkway in San Antonio. And if you can't make it, you can watch it on your computer screen at home and listen to it on the Doc Owen Show.
That's pretty neat. That's pretty good. I
Yeah,
like that.
that's how important we think that is. Okay, so there's 2 reasons to do that. Now, we're going to take a trip back into old Texas, if I remember correctly where you left us off last time.
Yes, sir.
We're going to take a historical trip through Texas. And when is it going to start? I mean, when we're in Texas, are you putting us? What's happening? Have we had the Battle of the Alamo yet?
No, we haven't.
We're way ahead of that, right?
Yeah, this is going back.
This is building
way
up to it,
before that.
like the tyrannical era of the United States.
Tyrannical?
Tyrannical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask me to spell it. Okay, Uncle Bocce.
Okay, so
Bocce's brief.
once
Go for
upon
it.
a time, back before the Europeans came,
Okay.
the area that we know now, or the state of Texas, there were nothing there but Native Americans.
Okay.
Okay, because the Europeans didn't start arriving until the 1500s. Now, there were several Native American tribes. There were probably a lot, but the major ones were the Caddos, or the Caddos.
Yeah.
They lived in East Texas.
Yep. Cato Lake. They live near Cato Lake.
Okay, yeah. And they were excellent farmers,
Yep.
growing corn and sunflowers.
East Texas. Yep.
And then the Karankawa people, they lived along the Gulf Coast, so naturally they were excellent
Right.
fishermen.
Right.
And they also made dugout canoes to do their fishing in.
Of course.
Then the notorious Comanche.
Yeah.
They were the hunters and gatherers. They were excellent horsemen.
Right.
So they were in the west and southwest, or excuse me, they were northwest.
Okay.
Okay, and the to the west and southwest were the Apaches.
Ah.
Okay.
Okay.
And they were warlike and lived in wickiups or teepees.
Okay.
Okay.
Did
Then
the-
the Europeans arrived.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Did these Indians get along with each other? Or
For
did they just sort of respect each other's territory? And
They did, but you'll see later that there were skirmishes between them.
Okay.
And with the Europeans, allying with them,
But
so it put some of them ahead.
the reason I ask that is because we have a tendency to think that they were all the same. No, we refer to Native Americans, and we have a tendency to think, oh, they were all the same. All these Indian tribes,
Just kind of all grouped
And-
together.
yeah, they all
Yeah,
did the same thing, yada
right.
yada yada, and we know that not to be true, but we don't
Exactly.
think about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
even within certain groups like the Apaches,
Yeah.
there were
Well,
multiple different.
When you're talking about Apaches and
Tribes.
Comanches, those guys couldn't have possibly gotten along.
Right,
Okay.
and they didn't, and we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so then the Europeans arrived in 1519. The Spanish came to Texas, and the first guy was Alonso Alvarez de Pineda. He mapped the coastline, so
Okay.
they were getting ready for their exploration. Another Spanish explorer, Cabeza de Vaca,
Yeah,
which, as an aside, means head of the cow.
right.
Well, it's no wonder that he shipwrecked off the coast of Texas in 1528. I mean, if you were going around, you had the head of a cow on you.
Yeah, there's a reason he had that name.
Exactly.
Not
So-
the brightest bulb on the tree.
Moo.
But what he did is he met with the local Indians and he wrote back to Spain about gold. And that inspired the Spanish conquistadores
Sure.
to explore Texas. Hey, money.
Yeah.
So
Wampum,
Hernando de Soto was
they
one
call
of
it.
them. Guess what? They
Okay.
never found gold. So you can imagine what happened.
Well, no, they hit it
For
before
the
they got here.
next, for the next 20 or 2 decades, the Spanish completely just ignored Texas. And you remember for the first 150 years of the British colonies, they were pretty much ignored for the first 150 years at least.
Yeah, let's wait and see if
Okay.
they're going to make it.
But
first.
there's a difference. There's a difference between them. Okay, so as far as colonization is concerned, it wasn't until the late 1600s that the Europeans began to settle Texas. The first, believe it or not, were the French. Now, they claimed the land by Robert de La Salle. They built a fort called Fort St. Louis in 1685. But they didn't last long in Texas. The Spaniards did not like the idea that the French were encroaching on them.
Of course not.
Yeah, exactly. So they believed that that was a threat. And remember, when we talked before, when we were studying Florida, Florida was Spanish, and then there was Louisiana, which was owned by French,
Right.
most of Louisiana, and then the Spanish again. So they didn't like the idea that they did not have a connection with the rest of their colonies.
The Spanish did. The
Right.
French were in between the two
Exactly.
groups, the Floridians and the
Exactly.
people. Okay. Mm-hmm. Right.
So the Spanish
Kind of
settled
like,
Texas.
you know what? That's kind of like they are in Europe. The French are between, like the Germans and the
Spain and
Spanish.
Germans. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. And the Spanish settled Texas by establishing Catholic missions, and we went over that too in California. They had the same. So they built a number of missions across Texas. Now, something that you need to understand about the Spaniards, okay, and this is an important principle that we need to understand because it applies also to 13 original colonies which became the United States.
So what he's trying to tell you, folks, is write this down.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The thinking of the Spaniards, they viewed Christianity as an inseparable component from town building in the colonial area. They believed that it was necessary for proper functioning of civilized urban life that there needed to be a Christian or at least a religious kind of thinking. Okay, it was very important to them.
And as witnessed here in San Antonio, what is city center in almost every town with Spanish heritage?
Yes, they have the central
Church.
plaza. Yeah, it's a church.
It's a church with
government buildings were all around
But
the
it's-
central
but
plaza.
the church is city center. That's the deal.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's what they considered is the idealized civic life. And you remember the Brits or the American Brits, they pretty much had the same kind of idea. And our founding fathers actually took that principle and said that, we cannot exist as a republic without a sense of morality or not necessarily Christianity, but a sense of
Right.
religion.
Right.
Okay, so it's interesting to me that the Spanish had that same concept. How are we on time here?
Getting pretty close.
Okay. So that kind of guided them along as they were dealing with the Indians. They wanted to convert the Indians, and they called it the Indian reductions. Now, I'm going to end with, in 1690, a guy by the name of Alonso de Leon, he escorted several Catholic missionaries to East Texas, where they established the first mission in Texas. So they did set up a mission in East Texas, as well as we know in San Antonio we have the 5 missions.
Right. Where in East Texas? Does it say? Do you know?
No, I don't know specifically.
Okay.
So
Just curious.
yeah, they
Okay.
you'll have another minute.
Go.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead to 1691. A group of Catholic Spaniards or explorers and missionaries, they came upon a river, and the Payaya settlement. they found that on June 13th in that year, the Feast of St. Anthony of Padua, which is what San Antonio was named for. The Payaya Indians, they lived in the San Antonio River Valley, mostly around San Pedro Springs, which is now San Pedro Park.
Right.
And they called the vicinity Yanaguana.
Okay.
You know what that means?
No.
It means refreshing waters. But isn't that the name of the river taxi or the boats, the barges? The company is Yanaguana.
Really?
So, bringing that today history back to then. So, it was really, to me, I just found that very, very interesting.
That is interesting.
Yes, it is.
Do they tell you that when you take a Yanaguana on the river?
No, I don't ever remember them saying that. And
That's
it
too
was
bad.
these Indians.
Good job.
Okay. Folks, you can reach me at Uncle Bachi, UNCLEBACI, at DocOwenShow.com. Send me some letters or emails.
And I'm so excited because it's working through the new blog.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
We made the transition safely.
Yes.
We are now going to take a brief break, and we will be right back.
Hi, I'm George Foreman. Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
Call InventHelp today for free information. InventHelp can submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas.
Call 1-800-352-3127. Again, 1-800-352-3127. A fee-based company.
Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to The Doc Owen Show. Glad to have you. That little ad, you may not know, that was George Foreman. If you don't know who George Foreman is, he's a guy that invented this hamburger maker thing, and he's got like 4 sons all named George. But who he really was, at one time he was the heavyweight champion of the world. I think he beat Muhammad Ali, and then Muhammad Ali took it back from him or something like that. Because of the passing of Muhammad Ali, if you watched any of the tributes to him, you probably had an opportunity to see Mr. Foreman. So that's who that was doing the little ad for us. Our next little segment is a guest that I chatted with earlier in the week. It's a young man by the name of Josh Caplan. And Mr. Caplan is the editor-in-chief of a new internet news location, if you will. And it's called, I'm not going to steal too much of his thunder, but the name of it is VesselNews. It is a startup operation, and we're going to talk about it. It's out there. It is really cool looking, and he's doing some very interesting things. I think you will enjoy the conversation. Mr. Caplan, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And now you've got the area code on your phone number indicates that you're either in Canada or have a cell phone that you established when you were in Canada. Which is the case?
Well, I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada.
Okay.
Spent time in Scottsdale, Arizona as a private equity real estate analyst.
Okay.
And studied at Stanford in California.
So
I spent a lot of time in the United States. I returned to Montreal, Canada. I'm launching this website as a 100% American politics-facing news site. And that is the reason for the 514 area code.
Well, it's not that we're not interested in Canadian politics. It's just that compared to what we're going through right now, we consider it dull.
I call American politics the best ongoing soap opera that actually has real implications in all of history.
I like that. I like that. The soap opera analogy is unfortunately quite apropos. So let's talk a bit about what you're doing. You are you are crowdfunding. Let's get that out there. One of the main things is you've got a new venture going called VesselNews, VESSELL, right?
VESSEL. You got it.
Single L, Vessel News. Where'd the name come from? What does that indicate? Help me understand. I couldn't connect the dots.
Well, it's got a dual meaning. The first thing is that I love the way it came off the tongue. I think VesselNews is a trendy, hip name.
Okay.
That's different within the conservative media. Normally you get a more firebrand, hard-edge names out there, which are fantastic, but we wanted to take a different approach. And the biblical connotation of vessel is very powerful. That VesselNews is an entity in which is a carrier of ideas. That's what we are. We're a vessel.
I like
in our website, there are ideas, there's news, there's a vision, there's principles, there's values. And this website is merely a holder of those things that we use to disperse on a daily basis to our readers.
Okay.
And that, yeah.
I like it. So pardon my inability to dig deep enough. When I was looking at the website, when you say, is that explanation you just gave on the website under the About Us column?
It isn't on the website, actually. That was something that we kept off the website, not because there was a real reason for that. It's just a question of, somebody we only have a couple seconds of attention. What would we? What's the number one thing we want to tell them? And that's exactly the type of news that we're putting forth.
Okay, well, as you get better, I hear where you're coming from. As you get better known, don't forget to go back and tell that story, because I think the biblical implication is a very, very powerful understanding, as you said. And I think in one or two sentences on the site about where it came from might be good for you.
Definitely, I appreciate it.
Just a thought, just off the top of my head. So you've got an Indiegogo crowdfunding initiative going. If we go out to Indiegogo.com and look you up, are you there yet, or is that just part of the plan?
So we are there right now. If you go to www.indiegogo.com, which is spelled INDIE.
Yep.
GOGO.com.
Yep.
And then you type in on the search bar on the website VesselNews, we will pop up as the first crowdfunding project, and you can click on that, and we've got any dollar amount that you feel fit to be able to give, anywhere between $5 all the way up to the entire project, which is $50,000 total. And it's not just a platform for people to give. It's actually a two-way street. Not only are you crowdfunding an amazing website, but depending on how much you give, we've got perks and rewards and prizes for people, like T-shirts and stickers and mugs.
Cool.
And if you end up giving a little bit more than the standard, we get to have phone conversations every now and then and talk about the direction of the website, which I think is pretty cool.
That's a real good idea. I like Indiegogo as a platform. I think it does a lot of good. So we will not just use the opportunity of this conversation, but continue to promote it as long as you're out there. That's a commitment the Doc Owen Show will make, and see what we can do to help get the word out on our weekly broadcasts. So, and this sparked you. I mean, I didn't hear you say that you had like a literature background or an English background, you know what I'm saying, in terms of your education. So this is obviously a passion. U.S. politics is a passion of yours. It's not something you're, going after to make mega $1 million, or are you?
Well, depending on how large we get, but they say that the surest way to make millions of dollars is do something you're passionate about, and the rest will follow.
There you go. So it's something that you're passionate about. In other words, it's something that even as one of our Canadian brethren, you think what happens in the United States is important on a global basis.
Absolutely. I believe that I was born just a few miles due north. Aside from the legal status of American citizenship, I feel deeply American in my being and my ideas and my personal philosophy. And this is a passion project that I think has been about 10 years years in the making, at least for certain close to 8 after the first presidential election of Barack Obama. This was a spark of an intellectual journey for myself. It was actually thanks to Barack Obama that I discovered conservatism as my form of ideological truth. It wasn't through reading books or supporting John McCain. It was actually, who is this man who's being put on a pedestal in a messianic fashion? Once I dug into his background and his ideas, I concluded very quickly that he would be a very dangerous person as the leader of the free world. And ever since then, politics has been my deepest passion.
Okay.
And I'm coming full circle by launching this website.
Good for you. Good for you. And you should know, I spent many years, probably about 10 years of my IT career working for Canadian firms. One headquartered in Montreal, the other in Calgary. So I've got a fond affection for where you grew up. So it's a little too cold for me on a day-to-day basis. But other than that, I like going up there. So you mentioned something that triggered a question on my part. If you dug into Barack Obama like that and came up with the conclusion that you did, which I cannot fault, and I think history will not fault, where are you on this phenomenon called Donald Trump?
Well, political pundits are all about picking one candidate and sticking with them the entire race until he or she drops out. I've actually had my money on a few different candidates. Before Donald Trump announced, I was supporting Ted Cruz, who I found is one of the strongest conservatives since Barry Goldwater.
You're welcome to relocate.
You're
now welcome to relocate to Texas at any point you desire.
I love Texas. I was recently in Dallas about a year ago, and I felt very much at home there.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Ted Cruz proponent. I wanted to see a Ted Cruz Rand Paul ticket. I thought that was a intellectual and ideological powerhouse.
Yes.
That surely would have won. Right now, Donald Trump is the nominee. I like him for different reasons.
Yeah.
And I'm supporting him personally.
Good.
And I want to see him beat Hillary Clinton, no question.
I'm with you. I mean, I think that Mr. Trump is a breath of fresh air, although it may appear to be foul every once in a while. That's just he doesn't sugarcoat anything, and when it comes to politics, we're not used to that level of brashness and sincerity, to tell you the truth. And so I think, as you put it, the pundits and the old timers that are totally steeped in tradition are having a hard time with him. But I don't think they should. He's what the country is asking for, obviously, by his ascendancy to the nomination.
I think some of the issues that are deriving out of his outspokenness and we'll say anti-establishment positioning is, he cannot be controlled.
Right.
This is not a man who is being funded by lobbyists and big businessmen. The second thing is that they're concerned that he doesn't possess the temperament that previous presidents have. Now,
right.
We currently have a president who has marketed himself as one of the coolest cats ever occupy the White House.
Right.
And yet the world is burning each and every day.
Right.
So it's not that we need someone with a hot hand, and I don't think Donald Trump is somebody that doesn't have a calm temperament when needed. He did build a multi-billion-dollar business.
Correct. Correct.
So these two aspects, I think, are very difficult for the pundit class to swallow.
Yeah.
They want someone to speak off a teleprompter who they can control, who they can predict. And I think people on both sides of the aisle are going to have a very difficult time under a Trump presidency.
Oh, I would agree with you, and I think that's what the United States really needs right now. I think both sides of the aisle need to be awakened a tad, and just kind of shaken to the core, because there are an awful lot of people that don't think either party is serving the needs of the American public. And Donald Trump simply has given a voice to that concern. So,
Absolutely. And the media is doing everything they can to not only assassinate his presidency, but they're trying to assassinate his character. And one of the latest examples of that is this Wall Street Journal, I believe, publication that Donald Trump has a list of 3,500 small businesses that still have to be remediated by Donald Trump's holdings. And I find that story to be quite ridiculous, because if you look into the motive behind not paying many of these small businesses, it isn't because he did not want to pay due to some type of capital constraint. It's because they did a bad job. And I don't know, that's the type of toughness that we need in the White House. If you are not going to do the job up to our standards, well, you simply aren't going to be paid. And I can't understand why anybody who cares about the ballooning deficit would think that Donald Trump withholding funds because the job wasn't done properly as an indication that he is going to shortchange the American people.
No.
Rather, he's going to shortchange the very governments around the world that have attempted to do the very same to us and have done so successfully under this president for many years.
I got to tell you, I'm smiling. You remind me consistently of why I like the clarity of Canadians. I'm serious, because you are. I have a day job where I'm a consultant, and I pride myself on really being a consultant and not getting caught up in the day-to-day politics of the environment in which I work. And I think that, and most of my clients find that to be valuable. And you have the same capability as someone, that is a consultant, an observer, a very interested observer, but not necessarily required to be in the day-to-day mix of our political scheme. So that's pretty cool. So
Thank you. I think.
Go ahead.
Well, I think I've thought about how one is able to try to put together these views. I appreciate you saying in a clairvoyant way, but I think being born in Canada and having a non-biased experience of American politics as really an observer outside of the fishbowl has potentially given me this ability. But there are many Americans throughout the country who feel the same way that I do. And perhaps are related even better.
Oh, well. So
in these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 877-212-5898. Again, 877-212-5898. That's 877-212-5898. 877-212-5898.
Howdy, folks. This is Doc Owen. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show. Welcome back or welcome aboard. We're glad to have you. You may have noticed if you were with us in the last section of the show that the conversation with Mr. Caplan did not end as normal with us saying goodbye. It's because we've got another 14 or 15 minutes of the conversation, but we had so much to cover tonight that we had to kind of cut it short. So not next week, because next week we'll be going live from the Act for America meeting here in San Antonio, but the following week, so 2 weeks out, we'll finish the conversation with Mr. Caplan. And I think you will enjoy that just as much as you did the first half, because we'll shift gears a little bit, and you'll thoroughly enjoy it. So the first thing this is the first opportunity that we have had on air to discuss the events of last Sunday night in Orlando, Florida. Before we do, I need to give you a bit of a mindset, or something that you kind of need to pay attention to. I will recall in the early 1970s, late 1960s, my opinion or my version or my view of the world. At that time, the only thing we had was television, radio, and newspaper. And every time I saw or heard or read any of one of those platforms, my instant thought was, okay, what is it that they want you to think today? And my background knowledge told me that whatever it was that they were presenting was not all there was to be told. I came up with that attitude as a result of the Vietnam War. Nothing has changed. 50 years later, nothing has changed. It's only gotten worse, and it's gotten faster. They being the mainstream media, the powers that be, the administration, the powers that be, just like it always was, give you misinformation faster than you can take it in, and certainly faster than you can dodge it and sort it out and figure out what it is. Now, having said that, Uncle Bachi, what was your first reaction to what went on? I mean, we know we'll discuss a little bit briefly because there's some things that have happened since that I want to call our audience's attention to that has not gone out in the mainstream media at all. So, what was the first thing that the administration did? What was the first thing that the people in charge did? What was their immediate reaction after 49 people were murdered?
Well, all they just talked about is just gun control. They didn't give two hoots and a holler about those poor people that passed away.
Mm-hmm.
They did not. Nope. They really did. There was not nearly enough
concern.
Focus. No concern whatsoever.
No concern.
It was all about taking away the guns so this won't happen again.
Exactly. And I counter that. One of my first thoughts after that, if just one person, whether it be a bartender or someone who was just there, one person had a gun, perhaps not as many people would have died.
Wouldn't have prevented it, but certainly would have reduced the carnage.
That's true.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. So if my theory from the 60s holds true, which I think it does, and they immediately came out with all of this information, it's actually misinformation. Then we found out that there were probably two shooters, because a bunch of eyewitnesses said that there were guns being fired, rapid fire, and at the same time from two different directions. As the Trumpinator would say, many authorities have said that it would be physically impossible for one person to have created that much carnage. We learned that there was somebody at the exit holding it closed and not letting them out. Now, he actually got interviewed and said, well, it was probably a bad decision, but yes, he kept it closed because he wanted to keep the gunman inside.
Which could mean one of two things.
Yes.
Right?
Now you're thinking. He was probably telling the truth.
Right.
He may well have been telling the truth, but we don't know why he wanted to keep the gunman inside. Right? So And then Mr. Trump, in his own eloquent fashion, called the president and his administration out for their reaction. And what happened?
President Obama got very, very angry
With Trump.
with Trump.
Not the
shooter.
Not the shooter. And then Trump got under their skin, got under his skin, and got under Hillary's skin. It was very obvious.
Yeah, they diverted.
It was very.
They wanted to divert it.
If you watched, I didn't watch the live version, but I did watch it on the internet afterwards of Obama's speech.
Yeah, you didn't even what was the speech really about? It wasn't even about the poor people that passed away.
It was about gun control.
It was just like,
No, it was about the same thing it's always about, you know.
just horrible.
But
It's horrible.
And Trump came back and said, well, you know, if he's madder at me than he is at the radical Islamic terrorists that perpetrated the act. He's madder at Trump for what he said, which is exactly true. Okay. So, with all due respect to the mostly young people, I think from all accounts, the oldest I saw that was memorialized was in his late 30s.
Yes,
you know, they
I
were
believe
all
it was, yeah.
in their from early 20s
Yeah, seen that,
through
yeah.
early. These were a bunch of young people out for an evening of fun, and no one, black, white, red, yellow, gay, straight, whatever, deserves to die that way.
Nobody.
Period. So our heart goes out to the families,
Yes.
and I'll leave it at that. We'll move on. Except the first thing he did was to demand. Here's some notes coming from real news outlets. Obama demands an unconstitutional firearm ban and unlawful no-fly, no-buy ban. In other words, if you're on the no-fly list, you cannot buy a gun. Okay? So, in other words, if you're a terrorist, if you're a suspected terrorist, if you have terrorist ties, and by the way, for the last 8 years, we've been hearing that the Tea Party and United States military veterans are a greater terrorist threat to this country than is ISIS.
And you hear that
okay?
Yeah.
So, I haven't flown anywhere in a long time. I may not be able to. I mean, I may be on this phantom no-fly list for all I know. It's not like they ever tell you. It's not like you get a letter in the mail that says, oh, by the way, you're now officially a terrorist. Don't try to go anywhere. Or don't try to go buy a gun. Do they?
No.
No, they don't. They go and talk to you for 3 times and they turn you loose.
Exactly.
And I haven't even had my first conversation with the FBI.
Yeah.
So.
And the absurdity is that terrorist is not going to go to a gun store and buy a gun.
Exactly.
He's not going to do that.
No.
He's going to get it
From the
somewhere
black market.
else.
From the black market.
So
It didn't matter
I
how
wouldn't
many
have- I
laws.
wouldn't
Obama's
have-
whistling in the
that.
wind.
It could be a white market. It could be a red market.
Yeah, it could be anywhere.
Well,
The
the
underground
street
market.
term is called black market.
Okay.
Remember my last name?
So Trump called him out. He said he was defending the terrorists, that he sounded more like a defense attorney than he did the President of the United States. And Trump was exactly correct.
He was correct, yes.
So, while all of this is going on, while the public's attention is completely fixated mostly on Orlando, and then that was shot over by the young boy that got dragged under the water by an alligator at Disneyland.
Yeah.
So
What a tragedy.
they had a double dose in Florida going on the first part of the week. That was a real tragedy. They did find the body.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Headline: Obama hires Muslim who praised 9/11 attacks for Homeland Security. Wait till you hear this. Wait till you hear this. While the president is peeved that Donald Trump and other Republicans keep demanding that he specifically address the fight against radical Islam, his actions continue to demand our objections. In the most recent example of his completely disconnected from reality political policies, Obama just hired Laila Alawa to join Homeland Security. Why does this matter, you ask? Who is Laila Alawa? Let me tell you. She has spoken glowingly about the 9/11 terrorist attacks and how they changed America and the world for good. She also scoffed at American exceptionalism while arguing that she considers herself Syrian and will never embrace America. So while we're complaining that our commander-in-chief won't do what he's supposed to be doing, he's taking that cover, if you will, air cover as we used to call it, and inserting a devout Muslim, as far as I'm concerned, terrorist, if she's going to say those things about the United States, and putting her at a high level in Homeland Security.
That is absolutely
Think about that.
ridiculous.
Did you know that? You didn't know that.
I didn't know it as much in detail as you just said it, but yeah,
Okay.
I did. I had heard of it, but it's just, I mean, it's mind-boggling. Like Donald Trump said, there's something going on.
You know,
he's got. I hope he finds out what it is, because I think we all know what it is.
I think we need to go back to the Wayback Machine, and I think, if I remember correctly, there's a Foghorn Leghorn cartoon that goes something like that. You know, I said, "What's going on around here?" I'm sure of it. I can hear it. I can hear it. I know it's out there. I will find it before the next show, I promise you. We will have Foghorn Leghorn on the air. In addition, here's a cutie for you. This is same time frame. I'm not going out of sequence here. All of these things are happening at the same time. You following me? Orlando shooting, little child with the alligator, that wasn't a setup. Lady going into Homeland Security. Now get this one. All right. People complaining about, Islamic terrorists infiltrating the United States and inviting all these Syrians in without them being, not just Syrians, Middle Easterners, let's put it that way. Middle Eastern Muslims are coming in unvetted. Who are you? What'd your daddy do? None of the questions. And by the way, this kid that did the thing in Orlando, his father claims to be the de facto president in exile of Afghanistan. And he hates
America.
He hates America. Totally
Yes.
hates America.
So then why is he here?
Because it's Gus Goody, the money. All right. An Islamic refugee caught in the U.S. with gas pipeline plans. All right. New Mexico police have apprehended an illegal Middle Eastern woman in possession of the region's gas pipeline plans. Now, we're not talking about pipes that feed your pump at the local gas station. We're talking about major industrial natural gas pipelines that feed your electric company. The vast majority of electricity, now that they've put coal out of business, is produced with gas that's in these pipelines that are all over the country. All right? And if you're not familiar, gas is pressurized. So all of these pipelines are interconnected. They're connected together. There's a few hubs that are like the old train stations where they can, open and close the valves. All right, like they used to open and close the tracks. But it's all under pressure. So it'll blow up like sky high. It happened up near Brenham, Texas one time, and it blew windows out for like 50 miles because one of the gas lines erupted. So if she's got the gas pipeline maps for all of southern New Mexico, which is a hotbed for natural gas, it's about 35 miles north of Mexico. I mean, blowing up the gas pipelines in New Mexico could put the lights out in San Antonio. You following me?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Just happened to find her with these maps. The media, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the media, in 2014, they learned that several members of known Islamist terrorist organizations have been apprehended crossing the southern border in recent years. According to information forwarded to Judicial Watch, which is one of our best resources, by a high-ranking Homeland Security official in a border state, Mexican drug traffickers help Islamic terrorists stationed in Mexico cross into the United States to explore targets for future attacks. And people wonder why we're worried about our Mexican border. In all honesty, it's not about the Mexicans.
It's not.
It's not, you know,
It's the least of our
because
concerns
we've
right
had
now.
that problem for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
It's escalated, it's bigger, it's getting nastier, yada yada.
yeah.
But it's the, you know, picture a beach when the tide's high and the tide comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful beach, right?
Yeah.
Tide comes in, tide goes out. What do you got? Crap on the beach.
Crap on the beach.
Islamic terrorists. Crap on the beach.
Wow.
They blend in because they look similar, you know.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah.
do. Yeah, they do. And they're not stupid. They probably learn the language. They, you know, whatever. But
The only thing that gives them away is their nose.
the only thing, why they can't smell?
No, it's the shape of their nose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, I mean, they once they're here, and you know how we list them when they come across. I mean, we've had
OTN.
we've had our buddy Jim Gibson from Texas Border Volunteers on fairly regularly, and we've learned about these things called OTMs. So everybody, including radical Islamic terrorists, are listed by Homeland Security simply as OTM, and the T does not stand for terrorist. The OTM stands for other than Mexican. So they're just in there with one big bundle, including people from, you know, Honduras and Guatemala and all parts of El Salvador, all parts of South America. As long as you're not a Mexican, you're in that bunch.
Yeah.
But you have the same rights and privileges as any other immigrant coming into this country, illegal immigrant coming into this country.
Let me pose a question, okay, in that breath.
Okay, we got about a minute and 12
Okay,
seconds.
real quick.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we actually did seal the border,
Yes.
isn't it too late?
Yes.
Don't we already have ISIS more here than anything?
Kinky Friedman.
They're already
Kinky
here.
Friedman, a Texas icon, ran for governor at one point in time, and he supported the wall in Texas. We're talking 10 or 15 years ago. All right, he was being interviewed on national television, and something came up about it. They asked Kinky about the wall. He said, "You know, I've been thinking about that." He said that was probably a bad idea. You know why? He said we may want to get out of here someday.
Yes, that's a valid thought. I've thought of that.
The wall works both ways.
That's right.
So it is a
here.
challenge. They are here, but we cannot taking away the guns and making us defenseless is
Makes it
not
worse.
the solution. Education is the solution.
Amen.
Education about what we're up against and how to deal with it and where to find it, how to spot it, who to tell, what to do, all sorts. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.